We're outside Fenway Park, where the last 12 months they've hosted baseball and hockey games. We're here in Beantown to interview Neil Abbott. He represents players like Jeremy Roenick and Carl Yastrzemski. He's a sure fit to speak about player representation and the state of the NHL.
It's Be Your Own Fan TV with your host, Tyler Taminia, sponsored by M-Style Marketing.
I know this is not your desk, right? Because it's too clean and
no, yeah, my office is so messy, I could not have you in there. There's just paper everywhere, and it's also tax time.
Yes.
So all these big brown manillas, this is all their guys. I accumulate all the information and organize it for the accountants. Right now, my office and the floors, no, I couldn't.
Well, thanks for letting us film you here. I mean, it's really great to see you, and thanks for taking the time out.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, so, you represent Jeremy Roenick. Why don't you talk a little bit about your relationship with him and how that started, and educate our fans a little bit?
Well, Jeremy and I have been together since he turned pro. He is a local. He was born in Boston. He was playing at our local prep school. He got drafted young at 18 by the Chicago Blackhawks, and he was going to attend school, went to BC for a week, but Chicago made a very nice offer, and he decided to turn pro young, which is rare. And he was one of the players that I thought could handle it, and he did. And he became a pretty quick success. He played 20 years in the NHL. He and I have gone through a lot of great times in different cities, but in Chicago he was a big star. And they made the finals in 1991, and unfortunately they didn't win, but they played the Pittsburgh Penguins, and a guy called Mario Lemieux was in his prime, and a young guy called Jaromir Jagr happened to be on the team too. Those two were just awesome, and they beat us.
With all the marketing issues hockey has faced over the last few decades, one of the most successful ideas is the outdoor NHL game. What's needed for the game to break its current reputation as America's niche fourth sport?
Well, I think that Fenway game and also the Olympics, the final game, Canada versus U.S., which I think might be the highest rated hockey game of all time. I think it showed what is the beauty of hockey is the skill level, the speed of hockey, physical to the sense of body checking and great competition for the puck, and an absence of a lot of the lesser aspects of hockey, i.e., goon fights, planned fights where one team's designated goon will fight the other team's designated goon, and the game stops for 5 or 10 minutes while we watch two guys try to pound each other in the head. It's exciting, like a car accident is exciting. There's a mindset that fighting is part of hockey and it helps regulate hockey. And my point is that fighting in pro sports happens, and it happens in baseball, it happens in football, it happens in basketball. When it happens, the fighters are banished for the night. And perhaps to sell the game in this country, I mean, violence in sports is condoned in certain ways. Uncontrolled violence is not, and that might be an issue to look at.
Do you believe Gary Bettman's aggressive Sunbelt expansion has weakened the NHL?
I think in hindsight it's always 20/20. I think there's definitely been some issues that maybe the NHL. I think the motivation for it was always expressed as we were trying to get a nationwide footprint for television purposes. So expanding into non-traditional hockey markets like Arizona, there's two teams in Florida, Nashville, Tennessee, Carolina, which is actually a transfer from Hartford, not really an expansion. So the results I'd say are mixed. I think Phoenix is the poster child for a disaster. The scenario in Phoenix was they built a brand new arena 40 miles from downtown. It's very hard to get to. The fan base, the ownership that made that move, they're no longer there. The guy who was surviving, Mr. Moyes, Jerry Moyes, put the team in bankruptcy. The NHL, they sued each other. The league won the lawsuit out of bankruptcy and paid the bankruptcy court and the creditors $140 million. Refusing to negotiate with a Canadian gentleman who happens to be the founder of the BlackBerry RIM, the research in motion fortune, Jim Basile, wanted to buy the team for $240 million and move it to Hamilton if they couldn't make it within 2 years to Hamilton, Ontario, where if anyone's ever been to the Toronto area, hockey is God. So the league fought that, refused to accept that premise, bought the team themselves, and as we speak, operate the franchise. And the league coffers are paying salaries, rent, everything. And the latest news reports indicate the local ownership group who the league wants to sell it to are having trouble getting their financing. Yeah. So Phoenix looks to be a very sick franchise.
Boston's a tough sports town. If you look over the last 3 decades, there's been essentially 3 icons that have been untouchable: Bird, Orr, Yaz. How does it feel to represent his interests, Carl Yastrzemski?
Well, he's a very interesting guy. He's a great guy. I ended up working for him. He was ending his career with the Red Sox, and I represented his son. And Mike became a client of mine, and through Mike, Carl had a chance to see me work with Mike, and that developed into a relationship where I started doing work for Carl. And he soon retired a year or so later. And we've been involved in a lot of different things in business, and some of his personal marketing stuff. And he's been he's an old-time baseball player in the sense that he just was all about playing baseball, and he doesn't need the daily attention. He goes to Fenway once a year. He is, in many ways very humble, and he's a gregarious guy, and a great guy to play golf with, great guy to go fishing with. But as far as his baseball, I mean, he's very proud to be a Hall of Famer, and when he got elected, it was a big thrill. But he is very content with not, he goes to Fenway, he gets invited to every event over there. He doesn't go to too many. But he was a very competitive man who let his achievements stand. He didn't need to talk about them per se himself. He's very reluctant to talk about them. You won't hear him on the radio giving interviews about his greatest year or whatever else, but I mean, he's very proud of what he did. But for him, it was, he let the performance stand for itself, and it does. He'll sign autographs whenever else he does that, but he doesn't seek the fan adulation. When the All-Star game was here, I think was it 1999 the All-Star game?
There, yeah.
Yes, that's right. Well, there was a sign. I went down to meet him down at the Heinz, and there was all the Hall of Famers were all there. And so I came in. Actually, it was quite fun. I come in and no one knows who I am, and I just he waves me up. I go past. There's a line from here to Saugus. It was just fantastic. And I get up on the podium with them, and I'm kibitzing with them, and I forget what we were doing. There was something going on. Well, everyone thinks I'm one of them, and I'm thinking
that's awesome.
And so I come off to the podium, and everybody's like, I said, no, I don't. And at first, people start thinking I must be, I'm snob or something. I said, no, I'm just his lawyer. Oh, come on, people.
Now it's time for our Be Your Own Fan moment. Where did the passion for hockey come from, or did you have a passion for hockey?
Yeah, well, I actually played. I mean, I have a hybrid background. I had an American grandfather, but I had both my parents were Canadian, and I was born in Canada, so I became a U.S. citizen, but I spent the first 18 years in Canada. So I played hockey, and I went to Colgate and played hockey at Colgate. And so I wanted to be a pro, up until I got out of Colgate, went to my first pro camp. I was sure I was going to be. Yeah. And then I watched these guys flying by, going, oh, boy, am I glad I got a degree. I had contacts, and next thing you know, I started, I went to a few prep school games, and I met a friend of mine who was a scout he's now with the Devils. His name is David Conte, who's an assistant GM with the Devils. And, he and I started talking, and there was one kid who was pretty good, and I noticed him, and we talked about it, and I ended up meeting the kid and his parents that day. His name was Brian Lawton, and Brian who's now the Tampa Bay Lightning general manager. He was the first American pick, #1, 1983, a long time ago before you were born. But Brian became the #1 pick in the draft, and all of a sudden I was in the business, and I'd been practicing law for a couple of years. And, so I got very lucky, and that's how it started. And then that led to some more players. In 1988, Jeremy Roenick was picked in the first round, and then in the interim, though, I got into football. And John Hanna, I got introduced to John by a sports writer, and I became John Hanna's agent with the Patriots for his last 4 years as Patriots, last contract, and for a few years afterwards. So all of a sudden I was, I got lucky. I mean, I was in Boston, I was a lawyer, and I suddenly had a #1 draft pick in hockey, and I had a Hall of Fame football client.
Yeah.
So that kind of led to things, and then I end up meeting Carl Yastrzemski's son-in-law, and his friend was Mike Carl's son. And he was White Sox AAA playing baseball. So all of a sudden he had moved on from another agent, so he hired me. So all of a sudden I was talking to Steve Norita and some of the guys in Chicago, and I was in baseball.
If you weren't an agent, what would you be?
Well, I think I'd probably just be, an attorney, probably do a lot more litigation and be more of a competitive attorney probably. Okay. Yeah. And
name a post-game watering hole that everybody goes to here after a game in Boston.
Well, in the old days it was Daisy's where all the baseball players used to go to, but the guys now, I would have to say there's a place called Whiskey Park over in the Park Plaza. Yeah. that seems to get quite a few. I've been there a few times with post games with guys, and there's a new restaurant in North End called Nebo that the guys like to go to too, which is a good spot. And
if you didn't represent any player, what would be your favorite team?
If I didn't represent any player, my favorite team. In hockey, I guess I'd have to say the Bruins because I'm a fan, and I've been going to Bruin games for a long, long time, and have a long connection with the Bruins. So it would be the Bruins for sure.
So the baseball would be?
It'd be the Red Sox.
And football is what? The Pats?
Well, no, I'll tell you, in baseball, I grew up a Yankee fan. But moving to Boston, living in Boston, I must admit, but when the Yankees are playing somebody else, I enjoy the Yankees. I still do, and that's sacrilege in Boston, and they do not suck. Yeah. They are a good team.
Well, thank you. You don't think so either. So, I recently just went to a Caps game. So a quick hit, Sid the Kid or Ovechkin?
Well, I think I would take right now, which is sacrilege, I'd take Ovechkin because he's so exciting. Yeah. If I was building the franchise, he's going to bring a lot. Sid is superb, does everything well. But I like that flamboyance that Sid doesn't have, and I look at it from an agent marketing standpoint as well. Yeah. Ovechkin is, he's the show. Yeah. And he knows he's the show. He scores the goal, he jumps in the air, the enthusiasm, the passion. So I'd take him, but in terms of impact, they're equal. They're the top two. But I like the showman a little bit more, and maybe that fits my own personality. But never forget, it is a show, and it's supposed to be somewhat fun.
You can learn a lot from Neil Abbott. He even got me a personalized autograph by Carl Yastrzemski himself. So yes! But as one hockey defenseman said to another hockey defenseman, it's time to get the puck out of here.